Hi, everyone, and welcome to Child Welfare Practice in Social Work, or Social Work Practice in Child Welfare, I guess is the official name. I'm Leah Doherty. I'm the instructor for this course. I'm going to do probably about a 15-minute overview of the syllabus and the assignments, hopefully answer some of the questions you may have here in the beginning of this course, and kick us off. So first, I'm Leah Doherty. I've been teaching this course now, probably this is maybe the fifth or sixth time that I've taught it over the last, I don't know, 6 or 8 years. This is a course that's very close to my heart, and I will tell you more about my background and what makes me passionate about child welfare and the experiences for families and youth within the child welfare system. So let me get started with the syllabus. So this is Social Work Practice in Child Welfare, SW 535. I want to start first by giving you my sincerest apology about the mix-up about the book. Unfortunately, the bookstore got the book for the other children's issues course, not for the child welfare course, and I didn't realize it. My fault for not checking sooner until I was just working on syllabus stuff this week and somebody emailed me about the text. So I hope people who have purchased the incorrect text are able to return it if you purchased it or rented it, and that you've been able to get an order in for the correct text. I know that there was probably some groans and moans because the text that I am using is a new text and it's much more costly than the text that the bookstore had listed, which is an older book. So renting, as I sent out in an email, renting it is perfectly okay, uh, or purchasing it online. It has good material in it, but it is something that you certainly can return or sell back at the end of this course. Now, the Purry book, the second book that we're using, that's a book that I hope that you will pass on to someone else when you're done, that you'll purchase it. It's a book that's life-changing, I think, for those of us in social work, and I think every social worker, every person in our communities should read the Purry books. He has another one that's just as good. So that one, hopefully you've been able to order from Amazon or a similar type service, and we'll get that pretty quickly. In the meantime, I will put chapter 1 and chapter 2. I'm going to scan them tomorrow when I'm at Marywood and create a PDF of them and get that up on Moodle for next week's readings. If you notice me moving slightly left or right, it's because there's a picture on the wall behind me, and I keep moving to keep my head centered so that that picture's like, a corner of that picture or something. Anyway, all right, so the course syllabus. This is a course in child welfare practice. It will specifically go over things around child welfare, but it's more broadly than that going to look at issues facing children and families in our society today as a factor that is relevant to why they come in contact with the child welfare service delivery system. The child welfare system has changed significantly. The syllabus says 20 years. I would go back and say even 50 years. Looking at the history going back to when the child welfare agencies were created, really mostly in the 60s and early 70s, to what did abuse mean, child abuse, through the 70s and 80s, and then the significant changes that have happened in the 2000s, over the last 20 years. So we have looked at, as a community and as a profession, what does it mean for family? What are the rights of a child versus the rights of parents, the rights of families? And we will talk about that. What does it mean to provide services in the least restrictive environment? And who gets to decide? And what are the pros and cons of different service delivery systems? We're going to talk a lot about evidence-based practice. I just did the video for women's issues, and I talked about that whatever your political affiliation maybe I, certainly respect where you are, but I will talk about in this course and in that course, my understanding of the impact of current state and federal policies to our profession and to the families in which with which we work. And one of those is the most recent policy that we cannot at the federal government level use expressions such as evidence-based practice. And what does that mean? I think that that has been one of the greatest achievements and evolutions of social work practice in the last 10 years, and most specifically in 5 years, is that we now talk more about evidence informed or evidence based practices. And the child welfare agencies have been a leader in that. And so we will look at some of their evidence based practices and what they've learned over the last 25 years about how best to serve children and families. Okay, so going on with the course rationale, we will look at, the shifting patterns of families over the years, the demands, the stresses, and how we have balanced that with states and federal responsibilities. Again, who gets to decide? Some of you will have taken an ethics course and will have looked specifically at some of these ethical challenges, and we will talk some in this course about that and how policy and practice, are intertwined around that. This course really brings together all of the foundation level courses in social work, so human behavior, policy, research, and your practice courses. Looking at, how do we do assessment, and then how do we do intervention within a child welfare service delivery system. If you are taking this course and you work in an agency already and you have the opportunity to collaborate with child welfare, or sometimes maybe you feel as though the child welfare system is working in opposition to what your agency may do, this is going to be a good course to kind of talk about some of those experiences and look at, what are the mandates, what are the reasons, what are the roles of each of the organizations. We will look at oppression and how that impacts the work that we do as social workers, and particularly how that impacts families and children and the child welfare system. We will look at your own personal experiences of family and how you define, quote unquote, what's normal or acceptable family behavior, parenting behavior, and who gets to decide what's right and what's wrong. So, looking at the description, the historical theoretical framework to understand the ecological context of child welfare practice. We'll look at policy and legislation. We're going to look at strengths and resilience for families and for children. Trauma-informed practice. I received my MSW from Marywood 25 years ago this year, and trauma wasn't really talked about at that point in time. And if it was talked about, it was solely around very specific circumstances, possibly a rape crisis and the trauma that a person receives there, or trauma as a result of war. Now we understand that trauma is so much more than that, and that your childhood experiences have a role in everything, not everything, have a role in what happens for you going forward. So we'll talk about the ACEs, in terms of childhood experiences. Okay, course objectives, just looking there briefly, I'll talk about these. The knowledge of societal values and historical traditions. Strengths perspective from an ecological assessment. We're going to talk about culture in terms of families and what does it mean to define and set standards when we look at things from a cultural perspective. Just demonstrate an understanding of child maltreatment, its antecedents and effects. What does abuse mean? How's it defined? What are some of the precipitating factors? What are some of the risk factors? What are some of the protective factors? The theoretical constructs in which we can work in child maltreatment. How does theory inform practice? How do we work culturally competent, family-centered practice, family-focused? Looking at multi-system context. More than ever, we recognize more and more within the profession that we can no longer operate in silos. Child welfare can't be here, drug and alcohol here, the school here. We all have to be working collaboratively. So different communities are doing multidisciplinary, we call them initially multidisciplinary teams. There's a CASC system that's utilized in Pennsylvania. So we'll talk about the models that are being used in communities to bring together various professionals, all for the purpose of assisting a family to, better outcomes. What are the trends in foster care and adoption practice? They continue to evolve and change. Again, number 10 there, evidence-based practice. And what does that mean? Ethical concerns. We'll look at professional self-awareness. What are you comfortable working with? What are you not comfortable working with? One of the things I hear students sometimes say is, I'm not comfortable working with the abuser. I'm not comfortable working with someone who sexually abuses children. So we're going to look at that. We're going to talk about that in this course. And finally, the knowledge of standardized measures, because assessment is and outcome measurement is such a crucial part of our professional practice now and going forward. So as the syllabus says, and as my emails have said, sent out to you, the text is the Cross and Tower text, Exploring Child Welfare Practice Perspective, and then the Perry book, The Boy Who Was Raised as a Dog. If possible, get the new and expanded, revised edition. He has put some updates in there. All right, you'll see when you look at the course content that I only have 2 weeks of material in the syllabus. That is because I design my online courses very systematically with a purpose. I post things about 2 weeks at a time so that you can't be working, ahead, weeks and weeks ahead. This isn't a course that you can do everything in 3 weeks and be done and say, okay, I can, skirt out the rest of the semester. I design it so that it's the work that you do is at the level of, say you were sitting in that 2.5, 3-hour course. So that the readings and assignments, there's something due just about every week that keeps you engaged in the course. Okay, and then it's important that you do them in the week that they happen so that everybody's doing things similarly. So you'll see that first week is and all weeks start on a Monday and end on a Sunday, just so that there's consistency about when we're talking about week, we know what week we're in. So these first couple days are just kind of the beginning week. I forget what I called it on Moodle, first week or something. But then we officially start with assignments and materials on the week of January 22nd, which is Monday. And that's when you'll have the first 2 chapters of the text. As I said, I'm going to scan them and get them up as a PDF so that you can read. Then the second week, we'll have a forum and you'll be watching a video. I know that some of you who had me as an undergrad may have had, you will have seen that video before. I thought a lot about whether to change the video because I know there are a couple of you in this section who had me previously, but I decided to keep the video because I think that you all are in a different place personally and professionally, and you may have different insights on this video and an opportunity to engage in conversation with others through the forum about this video and about the state of society and child welfare right now. I will tell you that the video is old, probably older than some of you, to be honest. I think it was out in 84, 83, 84, 85. And that's part of what I will talk about in Raise in the Forum is, how are we different or how are we the same? What's that make it, 30 years later? 93, 25, 35 years later. Uh, what in society, and as social workers, what's the same, what's different. Okay, and then I went up as far as the third week, February 5th, where we'll start the Perry book. We utilize chats in this course using Google Hangouts, which are available to do on a computer, on a tablet, or on your phone. If you've never used them before, I can help you set them up with a quick phone call. So the next couple pages of the syllabus go through the assignments. There are 4 discussion forums. Please make sure you read the syllabus. I'm very specific about what I'm looking for in the discussion forums, and word count is one of them. Next is the chat sessions, and you'll see the dates for the chat sessions. There will be multiple chat sessions per week so that you can pick a time that's convenient to you. Next is the current child welfare issue reaction paper. This is where you'll pick something from the media that's happening right now, either nationally, internationally, locally, whatever, it's okay. And there'll be some criteria set forth on Moodle. Then we'll do an evidence-based practice fact sheet, which is just a 2-page handout, like as though you were going to be instructing others with information about the evidence-based practice that you pick. Then you will have a conversation with a classmate called Evidence-Based Practice in the Real World. Then the next is F, which is the initial and mid-semester check-in. G is a policy assignment looking at recent legislation that's been enacted related to child welfare, children, families. I look at that broadly. There are 2 quizzes, 10 questions each on Moodle that will be a combination of course content and licensure-like case scenario questions. And then finally, each of you will pick a memoir from a list I'll provide, and we'll chat about that at the end of the semester. So they are your 9 assignments. As I said, there are no very large assignments. It's something, each week throughout the semester. And then I give you, again, all of the points and the due dates. So if you have any questions about the syllabus, certainly reach out and let me know. Communicating with me by cell phone is my preferred choice via text or calls. Pretty much anytime from 7 a.m. to 11 p.m. you can reach me. And it's best if you send me a text first, and then I can follow up with a phone call if necessary. So if you have any questions, please let me know. I welcome you to the child welfare course. I will do another video intro that gives you more information about my background at a later date. So have a great night, stay safe, stay warm, and I'll be in touch soon.